Lisa Martinez felt small inside the huge metal room. The space station called Nexus Prime was bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth. The walls were made of some kind of shiny metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Strange symbols covered every surface, and she could not read any of them. She walked slowly toward the center of the room where a large circle of seats waited. Each seat was different because each one was made for a different kind of alien. Some seats were tall and thin. Others were wide and low. A few had holes cut in them for tails or wings. The variety made her head spin. Jake Thompson walked beside her. He wore his military uniform but carried no weapons. The aliens had made it very clear that no weapons were allowed in the council chamber. Jake kept looking around the room with wide eyes. He had trained for this moment for 2 years, but nothing could have prepared him for seeing so many different alien species in one place. Behind them walked Dr. Elena Rodriguez. She carried a small device that could translate most alien languages. It made soft beeping sounds as it picked up different conversations happening around the room. Elena had studied alien biology for the past 5 years since first contact. She knew more about these creatures than almost any other human. But even she felt nervous in this place. The 3 humans were the first of their kind to ever enter this room. Earth had been watching and waiting for 3 years to get this chance. Every person on their planet was counting on them to make a good impression. Lisa looked around at all the different aliens. Near the front sat a group of tall blue creatures with 4 arms each. Their skin looked smooth like glass and they moved very slowly. These were the Kelhari. Lisa had read about them in her briefing files. They came from a planet with very light gravity. That was why they were so tall and thin. Across from the Kelhari sat some beings that looked like they were made of crystal. Light passed through their bodies and made rainbow patterns on the walls around them. These were the Vorthan. They were very old and very powerful. Their leader was named Zethkar, and he was the one in charge of this whole meeting. In another section sat creatures that looked almost like humans, but with silver skin and very large eyes. These were the Andromedans. They never fought wars and spent most of their time making art and music. Lisa hoped they would be friendly to humans. The room had 47 different types of aliens. Some looked like giant insects. Others looked like floating clouds of gas. A few looked like walking plants. Some were so strange that Lisa could not even figure out which end was their head. All of these beings were much older than humans. Their civilizations had existed for thousands or even millions of years. They had mastered space travel when humans were still living in caves. They had learned to work together and create peace between their worlds. Now they had to decide if humans were ready to join them. Lisa sat down in the human chair. It was the newest one in the room and looked very simple compared to all the others. The chair next to her was for Jake, and the one next to that was for Elena. The 3 chairs looked lonely in the huge circle of alien seats. A deep sound filled the room. It was like a bell but much lower, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. All the aliens became quiet and turned to face the center of the circle. Lisa felt her heart beating faster. Zethkar stood up. His crystal body was at least 12 feet tall, and light danced through him as he moved. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. "We gathered today to decide the fate of the species called humans," he said. "They have asked to join our council and become part of our galactic community. We must look at all the facts and decide if they are ready for this responsibility." Lisa felt the weight of his words. Every alien in the room was staring at the 3 humans. Some looked curious. Others looked worried. A few looked angry. Zethkar continued. "We have watched the humans for 3 standard cycles. Our observers have sent us reports about their behavior and their society. We have seen much that concerns us." A 4-armed Kelhari stood up. This was Printal, who Lisa had read about in her files. Printal was known for being very strict about which species could join the council. "I wish to present the case against the humans," Printal said. Her voice was high and musical, but there was no kindness in it. "These beings are not ready to join civilized society. They are violent and destructive. They fight wars against their own kind. They poison their own world. They cannot even take care of their own planet." Lisa wanted to stand up and argue, but she knew she had to wait her turn. The rules were very clear about that. Printal waved one of her 4 hands, and a large picture appeared in the air above the center of the circle. It showed scenes from Earth. There were images of wars and pollution and destroyed forests. There were pictures of humans fighting each other and making weapons. "Look at this evidence," Printal said. In just the past 100 years, these humans have fought 2 massive wars that killed millions of their own people. They have created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They cut down their forests and dump poison in their oceans. How can we trust such beings to be part of our peaceful community? Other aliens began to nod and make sounds of agreement. A floating gas creature made a sound like wind through leaves. Lisa thought it was probably saying yes in its own language. An insect like being clicked and buzzed. Elena whispered that this species was agreeing with Printal too. More and more aliens joined in the discussion. Each one had something negative to say about humans. They talked about how young and stupid humans were. They said humans were too violent to be trusted. They worried that humans would bring war and chaos to the galaxy. Lisa listened to all of this and felt her hopes sinking. She had prepared for this meeting for months, but she had not expected such strong opposition. Every species seemed to have made up their minds already. They had decided that humans were too dangerous to join the galactic community. She looked at Jake and Elena. They both looked worried too. This was not going the way any of them had hoped, but Lisa was not ready to give up. She was here to represent all of humanity. Every person on Earth was counting on her to find a way to change these alien minds. She would get her chance to speak soon. When that time came, she would have to find the right words to save her entire species. The attacks on humanity went on for what felt like hours. Lisa sat in her chair and listened as alien after alien stood up to speak against her species. Each one had new reasons why humans should not be allowed to join the galactic community. A creature that looked like a walking tree said humans cut down too many forests. A being made of liquid metal said humans made too much pollution. Even the peaceful Andromedans expressed worry about human aggression. Finally, Zethkar raised one of his crystal arms and the room became quiet. The human representative may now speak in defense of her species, he said in his deep, rocky voice. Lisa stood up slowly. Her legs felt shaky, but she forced herself to walk to the center of the circle. All 47 alien species were staring at her. She had never felt so alone in her entire life. She looked around the room and took a deep breath. "Thank you for letting me speak," she said. The translator device made sure all the aliens could understand her words. "I will not lie to you," Lisa continued. "Everything you have said about humans is true. We do fight wars. We do pollute our planet. We do make mistakes. We are not perfect." Some of the aliens made sounds of agreement. They seemed pleased that she was admitting human faults. "But," Lisa said more loudly, "there is much more to humanity than just our mistakes. You have seen our worst moments, but you have not seen our best ones." She pressed a button on her small device and new pictures appeared in the air above the circle. These pictures were very different from the ones Printal had shown. The first picture showed human doctors working in a hospital during a war. They were taking care of wounded soldiers from both sides of the fight. "We may fight wars," Lisa said, "but we also heal our enemies when they are hurt." The next picture showed humans rescuing animals from a flood. People were carrying dogs and cats and even wild animals to safety. "We may make mistakes with our environment," Lisa said, "but we also risk our lives to save other creatures." More pictures appeared. Humans teaching children. Humans building homes for poor families. Humans sharing food with hungry people. Humans working together to clean up pollution. "You judge us by our worst actions," Lisa said, "but you ignore our best ones. Yes, we fight, but we also make peace. Yes, we destroy, but we also create. Yes, we make mistakes, but we also learn from them." Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood up and walked to join Lisa in the center. She had her own device full of information about human progress. "Since learning about galactic civilization 3 years ago," Elena said, "humans have changed dramatically. Our carbon emissions have dropped by 30%. International conflicts have decreased by 60%. We have created new laws to protect our environment." She showed charts and graphs that proved her points. The numbers were clear and could not be argued with. "We are not the same species we were even 10 years ago," Elena continued. "We grow and adapt faster than most species. When we learned we were not alone in the universe, we began working together like never before. We stopped several wars just by knowing you existed." Akelhari raised one of her 4 hands. "But your species is so young," she said. "You have only had civilization for a few thousand years. How can we trust you not to return to your old violent ways?" Lisa nodded. "You are right that we are young. But being young also means we can change quickly. Old habits that other species might take centuries to break, we can change in just a few years. She showed pictures of former enemy countries on Earth working together on space projects. She showed humans from different races and religions collaborating on scientific research. Our youth is not just a weakness, Lisa said. It is also our strength. We have not become set in our ways like older species might. We are still learning and growing. An Andromedan stood up. These silver-skinned beings were known for being very wise. But young species can be unpredictable, the Andromedan said. How do we know you will not become more violent as you grow older instead of more peaceful? Elena stepped forward to answer this question. Because violence has become inefficient for us, she said. As we develop better technology and better understanding of the universe, we have less reason to fight. War costs too much and gives us too little. She showed economic data proving that peaceful cooperation was more profitable for humans than warfare. She showed how countries that worked together had become richer and happier than countries that fought. We have learned that cooperation works better than conflict. Elena said, this is not just a moral choice for us. It is a practical one. But the aliens were not easily convinced. Printal stood up again and her forearms moved as she spoke. You show us pretty pictures and nice numbers, she said. But we have seen species like you before. They all started peaceful when they were young. They all promised to behave. But as they grew stronger, they became more aggressive. They always do. Other aliens made sounds of agreement. Lisa realized that these beings had lived for thousands of years. They had probably seen many young species make promises they could not keep. The Zelkan Empire started peaceful, said a crystal being. They promised to use their strength only for defense. Within 50 years, they had conquered 12 star systems. The Mordani Republic spoke of cooperation and friendship, added an insect creature. They ended up enslaving half their galaxy before we stopped them. More and more aliens shared similar stories. Each tale was about a young species that had seemed friendly at first but became dangerous as it grew more powerful. Lisa felt her heart sinking again. How could she argue against thousands of years of experience and history? Jake stood up and joined the two women in the center of the circle. As a military officer, he understood the concerns about human violence better than anyone. I have spent my whole career studying warfare, he said. I know how dangerous humans can be when we fight. But I also know something else about us that makes us different. He paused and looked around the room. We are the only species that has ever created laws to limit our own power in war. We made rules about how to treat prisoners. We made rules about protecting civilians. We made rules about which weapons are too terrible to use. This seemed to surprise some of the aliens. They had not heard about these human laws of war. Even in our worst moments, we try to stay civilized. Jake continued. We punish our own soldiers when they break these rules. We hold trials for our own leaders when they commit war crimes. We are not just violent. We are violent beings trying very hard not to be violent. An ethereal floated closer. These ancient beings were older than most other species and very wise. Interesting, the ethereal said in a voice like distant music. But why should we believe you will continue to restrain yourselves as you become more powerful? Lisa stepped forward. This was the most important question of all. Everything depended on her answer. Because, she said, we have something that those other species did not have. We have you. The room became very quiet. All the aliens were listening carefully. Those other species grew up alone. Lisa continued. They became powerful with no one to guide them or watch them. But we know about you. We know about this council. We know about galactic law. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. She looked around the room, meeting as many alien eyes as she could. Give us a chance to prove ourselves, she said. Watch us closely. Set limits on what we can do. Make us earn your trust slowly. We are not asking you to trust us completely right away. We are just asking for the opportunity to show you who we really are. The debate continued for hours after Lisa finished speaking. Alien after alien stood up to ask questions or share their opinions. Some seemed interested in what the humans had said. Others remained completely opposed to letting Earth join the galactic community. Lisa sat back down in her chair, feeling exhausted. She had given her best arguments, but she was not sure they were good enough. The aliens had thousands of years of experience with other species. They had seen too many young civilizations make promises they could not keep. Jake leaned over and whispered to her. I think some of them are starting to listen, he said quietly. Lisa looked around the room and tried to read the alien expressions. It was hard to tell what creatures with crystal bodies or gas forms were thinking, but she noticed that fewer aliens were making sounds of disagreement when humans spoke. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was still standing near the center, answering technical questions about human development. A group of Zentari had asked her about human brain structure and how it affected behavior. These logical beings seemed very interested in the scientific data about human psychology. Human brains have changed significantly in the past 1,000 years, Elena explained. The parts that control violence have become smaller while the parts that control cooperation have grown larger. This is unusual among known species. The Zentari made clicking sounds that their translator said meant agreement and interest, but not all the aliens were convinced. The Kelhari delegation was having a heated discussion among themselves, all forearms of each being moved quickly as they talked in their musical language. Zethkar finally stood up and his crystal form caught the light from the room. "We will take a short recess to allow all delegations to discuss what they have heard," he announced. The formal session ended and aliens began moving around the room in small groups. Lisa noticed that most of them were staying far away from the human section. Only a few species seemed willing to get close to the three Earth representatives. An Andromedan with silver skin and large eyes approached them slowly. "I am called Veltar," she said in a voice like soft bells. "I wanted to tell you that your words were interesting." "Thank you," Lisa replied. "I hope they were convincing as well." Veltar tilted her head in a way that might have been a nod. "My people value art and beauty above all else. We have seen the music and paintings that humans create. There is something unique about human creativity that appeals to us." This gave Lisa a small bit of hope. If even one species supported them, it might make a difference. But as she looked around the room, she could see that most aliens were not having friendly discussions about humans. The Kelhari were pointing in the direction of the human chairs and making sharp gestures with their arms. A group of insect-like beings were buzzing loudly in what sounded like angry voices. Jake walked over to where some crystal beings were talking. He could not understand their language, but he could see colored lights flashing through their bodies. Elena had taught him that these light patterns showed emotion. The colors he was seeing looked like anger or fear. "They are not happy with us," Jake said when he returned to Lisa and Elena. Elena nodded grimly. "I overheard part of a conversation between some ethereals. They were talking about something called the quarantine protocol." Lisa felt her stomach drop. She had read about quarantine protocols in her briefing materials. It was what happened to species that were considered too dangerous to join galactic civilization. They were prevented from leaving their home star system for hundreds or even thousands of years. "How long would a quarantine last?" Jake asked. "For a species like us, probably 1,000 years minimum." Elena replied, "Maybe longer if they think we need more time to mature." The three humans sat in silence thinking about what this would mean for Earth. Their planet would be cut off from the galaxy. Humans would never see other worlds or meet other species. All the amazing technology and knowledge of galactic civilization would be kept away from them. Worse yet, Lisa knew that many humans back on Earth were already excited about joining the galaxy. People were learning alien languages and studying alien cultures. Children were dreaming about visiting other worlds. If the Council rejected humanity now, it would break millions of hearts. The recess seemed to last forever, but finally, Zethkar called everyone back to their seats. The crystal being's light patterns looked more serious than before. "The Council has discussed the human request," he said. "We have listened to their arguments and considered all the evidence. Now we must hear from our most senior member." An area near the front of the room began to glow with soft light. Something was materializing there, but it was hard to see exactly what. Slowly a figure became visible. It was tall and thin and seemed to be made of pure energy rather than matter. "This is Wisdom Keeper Alethmore," Zethkar announced, "elder of the ethereal race and oldest member of our council. She has lived for over 2 million years and seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations." The energy being that was Alethmore floated closer to the center of the circle. When she spoke, her voice sounded like distant thunder, mixed with flowing water. "I have listened to the debate about the humans," she said. "I have seen the evidence, both for and against their inclusion in our community. I have consulted with others of my kind who have even more experience than I do." Lisa held her breath. This ancient being had probably seen hundreds of species like humanity. Her opinion would carry enormous weight with the other council members. The humans show promise. Alethmore continued. They have achieved much in their short existence. Their creativity and adaptability are impressive. Their recent efforts to change their behavior are noteworthy. Lisa felt a tiny spark of hope. However, the ethereal continued, we have seen species much like them before. Young civilizations that seem peaceful and cooperative at first. But as they grow in power and knowledge, they inevitably become aggressive and territorial. The spark of hope died. The pattern is always the same, Alethmore said. First, they promise to be peaceful. Then they become confident. Then they become proud. Then they become dangerous. We have seen this cycle repeat itself dozens of times across the galaxy. She floated closer to where the humans sat. The Kelvani started much like you, she said. They were creative and adaptable. They spoke of cooperation and peace. Within 200 years, they had started 3 wars and destroyed 2 entire star systems. Lisa felt sick to her stomach. The Thanari were even more promising. Alethmore continued. They had art and music that surpassed even the Andromedans. They created beautiful cities and seemed to love all forms of life. But when they reached the stars, they became conquerors. It took us 500 years to stop them. More examples followed. Each story was about a species that had seemed good at first but became evil as it grew more powerful. I do not doubt the sincerity of the humans who sit before us today, Alethmore said, but sincerity is not enough. Good intentions are not enough. We must think of the safety of the entire galaxy. The ancient being turned to address the full council. Therefore, I recommend that humanity be placed under Class 7 quarantine protocols. They will be prevented from leaving their solar system for a period of no less than 1,000 standard years. During this time, they will be monitored closely. If they show genuine progress toward lasting peace, they may be reconsidered for membership at that time. The room erupted in sounds of agreement from most of the alien species. Lisa could see that the decision was already made in most minds. Zethkar raised his crystal arm for silence. Before we vote on this recommendation, the human representative may make one final statement. He said, You have 5 minutes to speak. Lisa stood up on shaky legs. This was humanity's last chance. Everything she said in the next 5 minutes would determine the fate of her entire species for the next 1,000 years. She walked to the center of the circle, feeling the weight of billions of human lives depending on her words. She had to find something to say that would change the minds of beings who had lived for millions of years and seen everything the galaxy had to offer. What could she possibly say that they had not heard before from countless other species? Lisa stood in the center of the circle, surrounded by 47 alien species. Every eye in the room was focused on her. The silence was so complete she could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. She looked around at all the different creatures. The tall blue Kelhari with their forearms crossed in disapproval. The crystal Vorthan beings whose light patterns showed skepticism. The peaceful Andromedans who seemed sad but resigned.
Even they had given up on humanity. 5 minutes.
She had 5 minutes to save her entire species from 1,000 years of isolation. Lisa thought about everything she had prepared for this moment. She had memorized statistics about human progress. She had learned about every successful peace treaty in human history. She had practiced speeches about human potential and the promise of cooperation. But now, standing here with the fate of humanity in her hands, she realized that none of those prepared arguments would work. These aliens had heard similar speeches from dozens of other species over millions of years. Every single one of those species had eventually become dangerous and aggressive. The ancient ethereal Alethmore floated nearby, watching Lisa with eyes made of pure energy. This being had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. She had watched species very much like humanity make the same promises and then break them when they became powerful enough. How could Lisa convince someone with 2 million years of experience that humanity would be different? What could she possibly say that had never been said before? She took a deep breath and made a decision. She would not give them another speech about human potential or promises of peace. Instead, she would tell them something true about humanity that maybe they had never heard before. You judge us by our wars and conflicts, Lisa began, and you are right to be concerned. We are violent, aggressive, and often irrational. We fight each other over resources, beliefs, and territory. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. This was exactly what they expected to hear. "We have poisoned our world and driven species to extinction," Lisa continued. "We have created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We have done terrible things to each other and to the world that gave us life." The murmurs grew louder. The aliens seemed pleased that she was admitting these human failures so honestly. Lisa paused and looked directly at Alethmore. The ancient being's energy form pulsed with what might have been curiosity. "But in all your observations," Lisa said, "in all your data and reports and analysis, you have missed the most important thing about humanity. You have overlooked the one characteristic that truly defines us as a species." The room became quieter. Several aliens leaned forward in their seats or floated closer to hear better. Lisa let the silence build for several seconds. She could feel the tension growing in the room. Every being present was waiting to hear what she thought they had missed. "We are the only species in this galaxy that keeps pets." The words hung in the air for a moment. Then confusion spread through the chamber like ripples in a pond. Aliens looked at each other with expressions that clearly meant they did not understand what she had just said. The translation systems worked frantically trying to process the concept. Different species began making questioning sounds in their own languages. Lisa could hear the electronic voices of the translators saying pets in dozens of alien tongues, but the confusion on alien faces told her that the translation was not helping them understand the meaning. "Pets," Lisa repeated more loudly. "We take other species creatures that are completely different from us and we choose to love them. We bring wolves into our homes and call them dogs. We care for small predators and call them cats. We keep birds and fish and reptiles not because they serve any practical purpose, but simply because we enjoy their company." The confusion in the room was growing deeper. Printal, the Kelhari delegate, was rapidly accessing something on her data device. Her forearms moved quickly as she searched through databases of information. Other aliens were doing the same thing. Crystal beings flashed with different colors as they communicated with their home worlds. Gas creatures swirled in patterns that probably meant they were thinking very hard. Lisa continued speaking, while the aliens tried to process what she was telling them. "These creatures cannot work for us or contribute to our society in any meaningful way," she said. "A pet dog cannot build houses or grow food or solve mathematical problems. A pet cat cannot cure diseases or explore space or create art. They serve no economic purpose." She paused and smiled as she thought about her own pets back home on Earth. "And yet we feed them when they are hungry. We take them to doctors when they are sick. We give them comfortable places to sleep and toys to play with. We talk to them, even though they cannot understand most of what we say. We mourn them when they die as deeply as we mourn members of our own families." Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood up and walked over to join Lisa. She had brought her research materials that included thousands of images from Earth. "I can provide documentation of this behavior." Elena said, "On Earth there are over 1 billion domestic animals living in human homes. Dogs, cats, birds, rabbits, fish, reptiles, and many others. Humans spend billions of dollars every year caring for these creatures." She activated her display device and images began appearing in the air above the circle. Pictures of humans playing with dogs, families cuddling with cats, children feeding birds, people rescuing animals from disasters. "The relationship serves no survival purpose," Elena continued. "In fact, keeping pets often reduces human survival chances. People will risk their lives to save animals from burning buildings. They will spend their last money on veterinary care instead of feeding themselves. They will refuse to evacuate disaster areas if they cannot bring their pets with them." The aliens stared at the images in complete bewilderment. Lisa could see that they were trying to understand what they were seeing, but the concept was so foreign to them that their minds could not process it. Jake Thompson joined the two women in the center of the circle. As a military officer, he had a different perspective on the human-pet relationship. "In war zones, human soldiers will often adopt stray animals," he said. "They will share their food with dogs and cats even when they do not have enough for themselves. These animals provide no tactical advantage. They cannot fight or carry supplies or send messages, but humans care for them anyway." More images appeared showing soldiers with animals in various combat zones throughout human history. "The relationship is based purely on emotional connection," Jake continued. "Humans form bonds with creatures they cannot even communicate with. We love animals that cannot love us back in the same way. We care for beings that would abandon us if they found better sources of food elsewhere. Lisa stepped forward again. The aliens were still staring at the images with expressions of complete confusion. You have studied our wars and our pollution and our violence, she said. But have any of you ever studied our animal shelters? Have you looked at our veterinary hospitals? Have you examined the billions of humans who choose to share their homes and their lives with creatures from other species? She gestured toward the floating images of humans and animals together. You worry that we will become aggressive toward other species as we grow more powerful. Lisa continued, but we already live with other species. We already share our world with creatures that are different from us, and instead of conquering them or enslaving them, we love them. The room had become completely silent. Even the electronic sounds of the translation system seemed quieter than before. Lisa looked around the circle, making eye contact with as many aliens as possible. We are not just a species that fights wars, she said. We are a species that rescues puppies from rivers. We are not just creatures that pollute our environment. We are beings that build hospitals for injured wildlife. We are not just aggressive territorial animals. We are the species that invented the concept of unconditional interspecies love. The silence stretched on as every alien in the room tried to process what they had just learned about humanity. The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like hours. Lisa could see aliens frantically working with their data devices trying to find information about this concept of pets. Crystal beings flashed with rapid light patterns as they communicated with their homeworlds. Gas creatures swirled in complex formations that probably meant intense thought. Printal, the Kelhari delegate, was the first to break the silence. Her forearms moved quickly over her control panel as she accessed the vast databases of her civilization. I am searching the historical records of every known species, she announced to the chamber. My people have documented the behavior patterns of over 12,000 different civilizations across galactic history. The room waited as she continued her search. The results are unprecedented, Printal said slowly. Every species we have encountered has used other life forms for food, labor, materials, or protection. Some have formed symbiotic relationships for mutual benefit, but we have no record of any species that has ever kept other creatures purely for emotional companionship. Other aliens began reporting similar findings. The insect-like beings clicked rapidly as they shared data. Even their vast collective memory spanning millions of years contained no examples of what humans called pets. The ancient ethereal Alethmore floated closer to the center of the circle. Her energy form pulsed with colors that Lisa had not seen before. In my 2 million years of existence, the ethereal said, I have observed the rise of countless civilizations. I have seen species that seemed peaceful and species that were openly aggressive. I have watched beings that appeared to love their own kind and others that seemed to care only for themselves. She paused and her energy form grew brighter. But never have I encountered a species that forms emotional bonds with creatures they cannot communicate with. Never have I seen beings that will sacrifice their own welfare for creatures that provide no benefit in return. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward with more data to share. The relationship between humans and pets has existed for over 30,000 years. She said long before we had advanced technology or organized governments, we were already sharing our lives with other species. She showed images of ancient cave paintings that depicted humans and dogs together, archaeological evidence of pets being buried alongside their human families, historical records of humans risking everything to save animals from disasters. This behavior is not new or temporary, Elena continued. It is a fundamental part of human nature that has remained constant throughout our entire development as a species. Zentari delegate raised one of its mechanical appendages. These logical beings were known for their analytical approach to everything. The behavior pattern you describe makes no evolutionary sense. The Zentari said, species that waste resources on non-productive relationships should be eliminated by natural selection. How did humans survive long enough to develop civilization while engaging in such inefficient behavior? Jake Thompson answered this question. Because caring for pets taught us how to care for each other, he said. The same instincts that make us feed hungry dogs also make us help hungry humans. The same emotions that make us heal sick cats also make us heal sick children. He showed images of humans caring for elderly family members and disabled individuals. People who could not contribute economically to society but were still loved and protected. Our relationship with pets is practice for our relationship with other humans, Jake continued. It teaches us empathy and compassion and unconditional love. These emotions made us stronger as a species, not weaker. The Andromedan delegate Veltar spoke up. But how do we know this behavior will extend to alien species? She asked. Perhaps humans can only form these bonds with creatures from their own world. Lisa had been waiting for this question. She smiled as she prepared her answer. Because we have already started forming bonds with you, she said. In the 3 years since first contact, humans have been learning your languages and studying your cultures, not because we have to, but because we want to. Human children are drawing pictures of Kalhari and Vorthon and Andromedan beings. They are imagining what it would be like to be friends with aliens. She gestured toward Elena and Jake. The 3 of us volunteered for this mission knowing we might never see Earth again. We came here not for money or power or resources, but because we wanted to meet you and learn from you and hopefully become part of your community. Elena added her own observations. Human scientists have been studying alien biology and psychology, not to find weaknesses to exploit, but to better understand how to communicate and cooperate with you. We are approaching other species the same way we have always approached other species on our own planet. The crystal being Zethkar had been quiet throughout this entire exchange, but now he began to glow more brightly. Light patterns danced through his body in ways that suggested deep thought. The implications of this revelation are significant. He said, if humans can form emotional bonds with creatures they cannot communicate with, then their potential for forming bonds with us may be greater than any species we have previously encountered. Other aliens began to murmur agreement. The mood in the room was shifting from skepticism to curiosity. The ethereal Alethmore floated back toward the center of the circle. Her energy form had changed color to what Elena quietly told Lisa meant deep consideration. I must revise my earlier recommendation, Alethmore announced. The humans have presented information that was not available in our previous analysis. This changes the fundamental nature of our evaluation. Lisa felt her heart beginning to beat, faster with hope. The concept of pets suggests that humans possess a capacity for interspecies cooperation that goes beyond anything we have previously documented. The ancient being continued, their ability to form lasting emotional bonds with creatures that cannot reciprocate in kind indicates a level of empathy that may be unique in the galaxy. She turned to address the full council. Furthermore, their willingness to sacrifice their own resources and safety for beings that provide no practical benefit suggests that their moral development may be more advanced than their technological development. This is the reverse of the pattern we have seen in most dangerous species. Aliens throughout the chamber were making sounds that the translators identified as agreement and interest. Zethkar stood up to address the assembly. In light of this new information, I propose that we reconsider the human application for membership in the galactic community. I second this proposal, said Printal. The Kalhari delegate who had been most opposed to humanity was now supporting them. As do we, added the Zentari delegation. One by one, species after species voiced their support for reconsidering the human application. Even the most conservative aliens seemed intrigued by what they had learned about pets. Alethmore raised her energy form higher above the group. I propose that humanity be granted provisional membership in the galactic community, she announced. They will be allowed to participate in interstellar trade and cultural exchange under careful supervision. Their progress will be monitored closely, and their full membership will be evaluated again in 50 standard years rather than 1,000. The vote was unanimous. Every single species in the council agreed to give humanity this unprecedented opportunity. As the session concluded, aliens from different species began approaching the human delegation. They had questions about pets and wanted to learn more about these strange emotional bonds between species. The Kalhari delegate Printal was among the first to approach. I must admit, she said, that this concept of pets has made me reconsider everything I thought I knew about interspecies relationships. Perhaps my people could learn something from humans about how to care for creatures that are different from ourselves. Lisa smiled as she shook hands with the 4-armed alien. I would be happy to introduce you to my dog when we get back to Earth, she said. His name is Charlie and he loves meeting new people. I think you two would get along very well. Jake leaned over to whisper to Lisa. I guess we should have led with the pet thing from the beginning. Lisa laughed and looked around the room at all the different alien species who were now eager to learn more about humanity. Note, to self, she said, next time we make first contact. With aliens, start by showing them pictures of puppies and kittens. Elena was already making plans. We are going to need cultural exchange programs, she said, and I think we should definitely bring some animals to the next council meeting. Nothing says peaceful intentions like a friendly golden retriever. As they prepared to leave the station and return to Earth with news of their success, Lisa realized that humanity had just taken its first step toward becoming part of something much larger than itself. And it had all happened because humans had learned long ago how to love creatures that were different from themselves. The galaxy was about to discover what humans had always known. Sometimes the most important relationships are the ones that serve no practical purpose, except to make life more meaningful and full of joy.